Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Spilling the Tea on GovCon. I am Teresa Moon, Director of Business Development for Parabolis. We provide a better financial partnership for government contractors that includes a line of credit to fund your growth. The purpose of this podcast is to assist small businesses with success in the federal marketplace by introducing them to industry experts and resources that they may not otherwise know about. Today's guest is a new friend and business partner, Chelsea Meggitt, CEO of Collaborative Compositions. I was lucky enough to connect with Chelsea thanks to our mutual friend, Mark Amtower, and I cannot thank him enough for introducing us. Not only is Chelsea a subject matter expert as it pertains to contract management and proposal development, she is one of the most upbeat and dynamic people I have ever met. Chelsea, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Absolutely. And from West Coast, no lie. So we are literally separated by the entire United States. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's actually a beautiful sunny day here in the Pacific Northwest, so I'll take it.
Well, I guess so, right? Because I'm sure it's few and far between. But hey, I'm sure you bring sunshine wherever you go, because I know that when I'm with you, I feel that way. But a lot of our listeners might not know who you are. So if you wouldn't mind, indulge me. Tell me a little bit about your background, how you got into GovCon, and about your business and areas of practice.
Sure, absolutely. So I am one of the few, if not only, lucky people to say that I grew up in government contracting. My dad worked for Raytheon, my mom worked for Lockheed and Northrop, and they both decided to stop working for those companies and start one in my house when I was 8. So they became one of the largest woman-owned small businesses contracting with the Navy over about 20 years, and I ended up helping them sell that company in 2018. Basically, I grew up in their business doing business development, project management, program management, and eventually when I helped them sell their company to a synergistic competitor, was able to rebrand that company and send them off running on their new GovCon journey. I started my business, Collaborative Compositions, in June of 2020 off the premise that there's really a valley of death between the PTACs and a full-time business development staff. So having some boots on the ground business development support in the GovCon market is really critical for being able to break in.
I can't agree with you more. And I think there's a passion there that both of us share with assisting small businesses. And you do an excellent job of it. I meet people all the time that know who you are and know how boots on the ground you are in terms of really fighting for those businesses and getting them opportunities that they might not otherwise know about. And that's a great segue into why I asked you to be here. Something that I was super impressed with recently with you, among other things, of course, is that you recently published an awesome article in Bloomberg Online titled Maximize Your Bid Options with Small Business. And so given that you and I have this passion with small businesses succeeding in the marketplace, I thought this was a perfect place to start because you really map out other ways thinking outside the box that not only small businesses can go after opportunities, but those bigger, larger primes can really, really, really look into how a small business can help support them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really awesome that this is something that you want to talk to me about right now, because the fact that large businesses aren't utilizing small businesses appropriately or enough in their teams is just a tragedy. I mean, there's so much wealth of knowledge, information, and resource there for small businesses that large businesses are just not tapping into.
Absolutely. And I like to note that we've got the link for your Bloomberg article down there at the bottom. But for those of you who may not be able to write that down fast enough or click to it, be sure to check out Chelsea's LinkedIn page, because it's also listed there, because I definitely, it's a quick read, but it's really impactful. So let's dive in a little bit so that people can get a little glimpse at it. So within this, you talk about how small businesses present lower risk when engaging on opportunities with a larger prime. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So when a large prime wins a contract, it's not just them winning the contract, it's them and their team. If it were only the one large prime winning, that would sure be a big source of risk for a single point of failure. We learned in the pandemic that having a single source of failure is basically the biggest risk to a supply chain that you can have, because that takes out the entire thing. If you're a large business coming back for a component that was only made by one company that is now out of business, you are kind of stuck in a rut. So having a diversified and varied small business supply chain that can fill those capacity gaps for you when you need is really important. It really shows the government that you're looking out for their best interest and that you're covering their ass and their needs too.
Absolutely. And I think to that point too, part of the reason that you highlight this is because there's such a reduction in small business participation on specific contracts within the DoD. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a significant reduction. Almost half of the small business supply chain industrial base has faded over the past 10 years. It's, due to vertical integration, acquisitions, just interest in GovCon fading, or simply not being able to get contracts as a prime. They've simply just disappeared from the market, and whether they're in commercial market or not is kind of up for debate. They are just simply not contracting with the government anymore, and that poses a serious risk for the government because they don't have enough resources and enough supply chain to cover their needs. If we can't deliver a weapons platform during a war, we're in a crisis.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, things have been status quo for so long that it's people like you who highlight different avenues that we can truck down in order to give new and fresh faces a shot, I think is really important. So to that point, why are these small businesses a targeted solution for creating more opportunities?
Well, they're responsive, they're flexible, they're agile, they can pivot, and they can adapt to changing needs and requirements much faster than a large business can. A large business has strategic long-term plans that they've invested in. They've got customers that are depending on their current products and services. They can't shift focus to the latest technology set or shift focus to an entirely new process or methodology for development. They have to rely on their small businesses that are adaptive, that are flexible, that can pivot in a way that they can't to supply those needs. They essentially, they've got an incentive, large businesses that is, also for working with small businesses. It shouldn't be discouraged. It's been very highly encouraged by the government to work with small businesses to meet small business goals. They've got these targeted set aside goals that they are aiming to meet themselves as the government, and they're aiming to have large prime contractors meet as well.
Absolutely. That's dead on, and I appreciate that. So when you've got small businesses, they're in the marketplace, they're looking for their past performance experience that is always that number one goal, right? And it's the hardest thing because it's like the chicken before the egg. Some large companies don't want to be the first person to give them a shot, but then on the other side of it, if they don't, then there's no way to tell if these new innovations are actually going to, fit the bill when it comes to presenting options for the government and the needs that they have, especially for the military. So how can a small business provide the larger companies, the larger prime, with access to new markets?
So honestly, small businesses oftentimes have greater customer intimacy with the customers that they do have. They are well seated and they fill a niche role for those customers, and they often have better relationships. In the case where they've gotten a set aside contract, that's off limits even further from a large business from even competing for. So these small businesses that do have set aside contracts that are in with some of these agencies have the opportunity to open that agency up to a large prime partner that wants to work together. A great example of this is the Veterans Affairs. They've got a preference for veteran-owned businesses and service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. If there's a service-disabled veteran-owned small business that holds a contract with the VA already, that there's a large business is interested in working with the VA, that's an entryway for that large business. They can support that small business as a subcontractor on that contract. That gives them the opportunity to work in that agency. It gives them the opportunity to get experience with that agency, and it gives the small business prime contractor in that role the resources that the large prime has to offer.
Absolutely. And I think for diversification purposes and expanding your portfolio as opposed to being pigeonholed, especially now more than ever, when we see the ebb and flow so apparent with inflation and everything else, it's so important to have opportunities with multiple agencies as opposed to just going down direct one avenue and not opening it up. So I think that that's a great point to opening it up for options instead of that one track. That's great. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And small businesses are often able to see connections that large businesses typically just don't make. If they can see things that will cross domain and cross agency barriers a lot easier than some large businesses that have been with one agency for years and years and years. So they have the opportunity to approach those large businesses and educate them on how they think that their technologies can, apply to different mission sets.
Right. And those fresh eyes on those contract opportunities are important. So they're not just giving up the same old options that they've always had. I think that that's a great point. That's awesome. So from a technology standpoint, innovations are coming out all the time. I live in Orlando, so we're a simulation modeling training community. So you've been here, that it's a constant revolving door of innovations and new technologies and new ways that we are formulating capabilities to perform on contract opportunities, not only for the military, but across the board. Everything is, automated these days. So, and coming from someone who's completely technologically challenged, it's tough to keep up, but it's awesome to be where I am because I see it all coming up from the ground up organically here. And I know that you are very involved in a lot of these businesses that are coming out of this industry that, is based here in Orlando. But let's talk technology and why should primes look at innovations that are coming out of small and newer? And you touched on it a bit, but I'm sure that there's more that you can add.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to take that ground up comment. Small businesses these days are founded on the latest technologies. They're adaptable and they can basically change and flex as modular things develop and as the future is growing with them. Small businesses have put out 14 times more patents than large businesses.
Wow.
They are able to look at bright ideas and put their resources towards them and find out whether they're worthwhile pursuing much faster and a much higher rate of execution than large businesses can. It's fail fast and break things is not really a large business mentality that you can have in bureaucratic processes. Prevent it. It's why small businesses can run with ideas and take them and see where they go. And, if it doesn't go anywhere, they can stop and change the next day and go to something different. It's the opportunity to bring in those developments that large businesses really should take advantage of here, is to bring those innovative, agile developmental companies that are thinking with the brightest and greatest ideas of the future into the fold so that they can develop technologies that are accommodating of those new technologies that are entering the market.
Absolutely. And it's that type of adaptability that keeps us ahead in the race for who's got the best in the world. It's different than it's ever been because the level of playing field that we're on right now is unknown because things change so much. And we see it, especially with regulation as it pertains to cybersecurity and keeping things, compliant in that level. But it doesn't stop innovation from growing and from developing new things. And so it's amazing how small businesses are such a integral part of that. And I love seeing it. And I know that you do so much to introduce these smaller companies with other opportunities. You and I have talked before about different agencies and how we can share. And I think, from a strategy perspective, how do you approach helping a small business that has a little bit of experience, not a lot, get into different opportunities within different agencies? What is your process? You don't have to get too in depth with it, obviously, because we know that you're having a business there. You're not working for charity. You don't give away all your trade secrets, but you have a knack for that and introducing people to opportunities. What is it that you look for?
I look for the gaps. I find large business opportunities and identify where there's a gap or a need that can be filled there. Every contract renewal and every new contract has new needs that are included in it that are going to need to be met by a new team member or by a new technique, by a new skill set. So finding those gaps that you can fill is the first and only way that I know of to really get in and highlight your value as a small business with the large primes. Because if you just go and you're talking all about yourself, they're going to think, wow, that's, great and all, but what can you do for me and why do I care? If you go to them with an opportunity and have already thought ahead of how you can actually contribute to that opportunity and bring more value to it than what they currently have on their current team, you've basically increased the lifetime value of that contract for the large prime.
And that offers more opportunity for you if you're the one that they ingrain themselves with doing business with. So that's a great perspective. I love that. And thank you for that. You have given great perspective. I encourage everyone to read this article because I think it highlights a lot of great information as it pertains to how you can get involved if things just aren't working out. Like I said, that past performance run that all businesses, small businesses have. I'm trying to gain enough momentum so that they can be recognized by the agencies that they want to work with or the primes that they want to work with. I think you've given some good insight into how they can go after it from thinking outside the box perspective instead of just, doing it the way that it's always been done. I think that's the downside to an industry that's so predictable as this can be, is that people tend to rely too much on the way it's always been done. I think the way you really get ahead is by being different.
And absolutely, I would absolutely agree with that. And I would encourage everyone to keep an eye out on Bloomberg because I've got more content coming soon and just specifically relating to that topic. Exactly. So
perfect. Well, we'll make sure that we share it when you put it out. And so with that in mind about keeping track of you work the circuit like I do. You're always, traveling and looking for different events where you can meet new people and introduce your current clients with new opportunities. Where can we see you in the coming months?
Well, I'll be at AUSA in October in Washington, D.C., and I will be back in Orlando for ITSIC in November. So I will be seeing you there, I hope.
You will, girl. That's a big one. So I'm excited for you to be here for that. And we've got plenty of time now to plan for some fun stuff for us. I mean, that's an offline conversation, but if anyone's looking for opportunities within simulation modeling and training, that's the event you want to attend. And I can't lie, I am partial, but Orlando's a fun place to be, especially for an event that size. There's lots of good parties, lots of good after hours things to attend. And so I definitely recommend it. But if you're going to be there, it'll make it even better.
Lots of exposure.
Absolutely, for sure. Well, that's great. So I love it that you're going to be here for that. I always like to end talking best practices, tips, advice, even if it's personal advice. If it's not, business related, I'm good with that too. But what are some best practices or words of advice you can offer?
Relationships. And it's all about who you know. If you can't get in the door, start making phone calls to people that you can build relationships with and start figuring out ways that you can help them and really what you can do for them. Highlight what they need and how you can solve their problems, not the value that you have and why you're great.
Absolutely. I'm with you 10,000%. I mean, we are in the business of making human connections, and just because a lot of what this industry provides is mechanical, who is super important. And you might know someone that knows someone that knows someone. And if not, you can call one of us. We'll probably know them, right?
Absolutely. And between the two of us, we know everybody, I'm sure.
I like to believe that I do. That's for sure. Well, listen, I appreciate your time immensely. I know that you've got a great day out west today. Any plans to get out? I know you like to be outdoors. What do you have any plans to enjoy the nice weather while you have it?
Yeah, I'm actually going to get the kayak out on the lake a little later.
Nice. I love it. I can't wait to have an excuse to come out there to see you so I can go out on that kayak with you. But with my luck, it'll be, freezing cold. And given my Florida blood, anything above, 72 degrees, it's chilly.
Yeah, you're going to aim for dead August on that.
Okay. Well, there's a plan then. Next August, I'm coming out. We're going kayaking for sure.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. We are going to keep up with you. This is hopefully not going to be the last time that we see you, because I know that our network will greatly benefit from knowing you and following you and learning from you. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I love it.
Absolutely. And as always, I thank all of you for tuning in, and I encourage you to continue to follow us. You can see more on our YouTube channel by the same name and see all of our past podcasts and discussions. We're going to finish the year strong with some amazing guests, so be sure to stay tuned. I am Teresa Moon, and thank you again for joining us on Spilling the Tea on GovCon. See you next time.